I am so excited to welcome our guest today. Dr. Janice L. Franklin is a retired professor of humanities and music for Dallas College. She is also currently an adjunct professor for Southern New Hampshire University. She holds a PhD in humanities, aesthetic studies from the University of Texas at Dallas, and her bachelor's of music and MA in music from Stephen F. Austin State University. Her doctoral work was interdisciplinary, connecting history, the arts, literature, and technology. Dr. Franklin's diverse career has included years as a professional musician, working primarily in musical theater in Texas and New York, and 20 years in the corporate sector. She is a member of the American Theater Critics Association. Her diverse interdisciplinary academic and experiential preparation was essential to helping students fill in the cavernous spaces in their knowledge of their ancestral role in the story of the United States of America. It is my honor and pleasure to welcome Dr. Franklin. Janice, it is so great to have you here. I am so thrilled that you decided to say yes to this interview series.
Well, yes, I'm excited. Thank you so much for including me.
Absolutely. So let's get started.
Okay.
So what is something that you're celebrating today?
I am celebrating the fact that I have another opportunity to make a discovery about me.
Oh.
I don't think we stop discovering. And with each decade, I've learned that. I didn't know that when I was in my 30s. I didn't, because we tend to think of things chronologically. But when I was in my 40s, that's when the questioning began. And so by now, I will be 70 in August.
Congratulations.
And I'm looking forward to it because with each decade, there have just been these surprises, like things that I had no idea that I could do, was interested in doing. It's been a period of discovery, and I now know that each decade. So I'm excited about just the possibilities.
That is so wonderful. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm excited to hear even more about what those possibilities will be.
Yeah.
So you mentioned in your 30s and even in your 40s, still trying to figure out what that was. What are 3 things that you wish you had known when you first started working?
I wish when I graduated from college, because I went straight through with my undergrad and my graduate degree, and really started a doctorate when I was 22 and didn't finish it because I also got married and then moved to Dallas, and it was really not wise to have stacked it, that much. So I'm 22 years old and I've done everything that they say that you're supposed to do. I did not know that my first job might not be in what I majored in. They didn't, colleges I think are doing a better job with preparing us for the real world today, but they didn't do that then. And so there was nothing at the university. There were no conversations about that. And so that's the first thing, is it would have been helpful to know, because I was stunned. And I remember that period so well. And I now know that maybe I was a little depressed at finding that, because I kept looking for the job that matched my degree.
Yeah.
And I was just, nobody had prepared me for the possibility that that's not really how this works. So that's number 1. Number 2, that the world wasn't waiting for me with bated breath, that when I went out and I interviewed, because I had done well, that people would say, oh my gosh, you're just exactly what we're looking for. And I mean, as I say that now, it sounds ridiculous and naive, but I was 22, so I was naive. And it didn't occur to me. And that 3, I would be unwanted in professional spaces. And this is where time period comes in, because I was born into the Jim Crow South. So I straddle both the segregated period and also the period post-civil rights.
Oh, wow.
So somebody that was born like after 65 would have had, it's going to have a completely different lens for this. But I didn't realize, I knew that there would be racism. I did not know there would also be misogyny.
Oh,
I just didn't know. And it would have been helpful to know. It wouldn't have discouraged me because I have a natural instinct to fight, and I don't have esteem issues, which is good. But I had no idea. So that came as a surprise.
there's so much there for you. Just not only are you doing with societal things happening during that time period, but then that being young at that age,
Yes.
and you're thinking, oh, I'm so excited, I'm going to graduate, I'm going and I'm going to do this. And yeah, it's, I remember the same with definitely not the experience you had, but the same. I got my degree, and I didn't even do it what I got my degree for at all. I basically learned that's not what I want to do. I just needed at that point the degree. Once I realized I don't want to do that. So, oh my gosh, yes. And we think we should be, we pay for this degree. We should be able to get this job, and we should stay in it.
And I remember feeling that I was failing because that had not happened. And it's like, well, I'm not able to secure employment in the thing that my degree is in, so I'm not succeeding. And that's because I didn't understand what I was later told in my first corporate job, because I have corporate resume, academic resume, and a performing artist resume. I'm diverse. And I learned at the corporate level, we just need you to have a degree because the company will train you in whatever they hired you to do. And I was like, but that's ridiculous. I'm working in a finance company and I don't have, those aren't my degrees, but then yet I wind up being a corporate finance manager. And so there was no way to know that. So just knowing that it may not be a direct path would have been nice to know.
Yes, it would have been, absolutely. And you're so spot on. So who ended up giving you the chance after having to deal with the misogynism and the racism?
My first significant, well, I'd have to say CIT Corporation, which is now Citi.
Mm-hmm.
And I came in at that bottom level and then kept getting promoted up into where I was then a financial analyst. And it was a good company to work with, and these were the times. I remember before I received a promotion from the clerical role into like the analytical part, the vice president of the company in the office called me into his office and was talking with me. And part of that conversation was, did I have my husband's permission?
No.
It was the 70s. That's why I brought up the Jim Crow and the thing, right? Because that's when I entered the world. That's when this little flower emerged right there at the center of the storm.
Wow.
And it was an exciting time, but it was also like, okay, well, this is odd. I didn't know to expect this. And he also talked with me about whether or not I was planning to have children, because they saw that as an impediment to a woman moving forward. And the words were, well, we really don't have time for babies, so are you tending? Yeah. And it was perfectly okay and legal for him to say those things. He was nice.
He was nice. Can you imagine that now?
Oh, yeah.
No way. Wow.
But it was a good company, and there was a solid foundation. That's where I got my training. And then the next job was still in that line of work, and it wound up preparing me for when my now ex-husband and I formed a business, because then I was able to handle that part of getting the SBA loan financing and all of those things because I had this background.
That was a great training for you.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with music or playing the piano. Nothing.
Well, that leads me into this next question. So sometimes people confuse career, vocation, the higher purpose. They think that that needs to be the one. So in vocation, that's where you use your unique and brilliant gifts to make a contribution, your sacred work. What would you consider your vocation to be?
I think, and this answer would have been different a couple of decades ago because I would not have thought of it in that way. I think it's an excellent question. I think now that I've got the benefit of hindsight, that it is being able to help people make discoveries. And there are so many different ways of doing that. But that's one of the reasons that I've enjoyed the part of my work history that has to do with teaching, is because I have those conversations and with students who are adults and helping them find the answers, or at least get them on the road to making the discoveries about themselves, and letting them know that they shouldn't be judgmental about their process.
Mm.
Just give themselves a break. And especially if you're young, you can make a mistake and start over, and you can go, oh, darn it, that didn't turn out the way I wanted to. You're not 70, you're 30. You know, you can move around, you can change, it's okay. It's a process, so.
Yes, it's okay. So Janice, how did you determine that that was your vocation? How did you even come to that?
It was through the process of working with people in a leadership role. Because part of, as you know, part of leadership, regardless of the industry, is mentoring, and it's also teaching. And you get better at it the more that you do it. And I found that the sense of satisfaction that came from seeing the look in a person's eyes where they have that, what Oprah used to call that aha moment, where they get it, or they're enlightened in some way, or sometimes it's just being the ear, being the person that will listen and receive because they just need to get it out without judgment, without fear of reprisal or anything like that. And so that's really very helpful. And I learned by doing that it felt good to be able to interact with another human being in a way that might have been helpful to them. So giving is so much more, it feels so much better than receiving, I think. And that's not something I always knew. So I don't know if this is making sense, but so it was through the process of doing that in musical theater, in education, not so much in the corporate environment, because I was really young when I was still doing that. That it dawned on me that I liked the way I felt.
Right. I love that.
Yeah.
You feel it. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So another part of that we look at is this individualism, which is our expression of our own personality in anything you do. How do you express your individualism in whatever you do?
I thought about that, and being authentic. I remember being younger and walking into a new situation and thinking that I needed to follow some sort of model. But the problem that I had was that I was usually the only person of color in the situation. Again, that goes back to the time period that I'm coming through. Even when I was hired at my last employment at Dallas College, there were a handful of minority faculty. And in my area in fine arts, there was one, me.
Oh, wow.
That's been my life though.
Right.
I don't know anything else. I don't know anything else. My university, out of 11,000 students, only 33 were Black. I've always been the only person. So that means that there was no model to follow because there was no one else to look to. And then when you're in a field that's predominantly male, you still further don't have a model because you're the only female in that role, in that organization. And I eventually I arrived at the space where I realized, you know what? I'm a musician. I'm not an actor. I'm horrible at acting and I don't like it. And I don't like lying. I just need to be who I am. People are either going to accept that or they're not. I'm not going to be able to keep up the facade if I go in there with one. And just as I can see through people who are not authentic, why do I think somebody wouldn't see through me? And so you're not going to be able to establish a trust, even with just your fellow coworkers, if they know that you're pretending to be something you're not. It's just, so authenticity, my authenticity, and you know, to the other person, you want me to accept you as you are. Well, there's reciprocity there.
Right.
And so we will either connect or we won't. There'll either be congruency there or there will not be. But at some point along the way, along my life's journey, I will land in places where synergy happens. And so that's, you know, when it's not there, it's not there. But when it's there, it's everything. So I'm just me, and I'm eclectic. So my diverse work background fits my personality. I like antiques and I like modern.
Love it.
If you're in my home, you see both. You see old wood and chrome and metal. And that's who I am. The music, my musical choices, or world, you know, everything. And so that's who I am.
That's beautiful. I love that. I love that. It, you know, you mentioned something where it's, you know, if it doesn't feel right with with their authenticity, when you're trying to be something else. I remember that when I first started in my career and younger, I knew I was trying to fit this pattern, but it feels like you're wearing the wrong size coat, and then you finally realize, wait, this is not me.
Yeah.
Let's get that off and figure out what it is and be more comfortable.
Yeah. And later, I would say in my last decade, I took that deeper to think of it with this language. I am enough as I am.
Yes.
I'm not broken.
That is beautiful. That's quotable right there. Right there.
I don't need to be fixed, you know? So.
All right. Thank you. So let's talk about higher purpose. And the higher purpose is the meaningful reason to live. And money is not part of the equation. So what would you say would you say you have a higher purpose or not?
I don't think that I necessarily do. I don't think that the higher purpose is different for different people. I think that as humans, as our species, that each day we hopefully will find some few minutes in the day, even on bad days, to try to commit to becoming the better version of ourselves. But I don't see that as a higher purpose for me. I just think that's part of the journey of becoming a fully fleshed out human being.
I love that. Yes, keeping it simple versus trying to confuse things for yourself.
Because it's hard to do that.
Yes.
It really is. It sounds simple, but we have to navigate so many things. And especially in the environment, heightened environment that we're living in currently. Being that better version of yourself is really, really hard. And it can be stressful to try to do that, because it might mean that you walk by something that is hateful that's coming toward you that you want to react to and to respond to. So it makes you be more discriminating about the battles that you engage in. That every every hammer is in search of a nail. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you really want to be a hammer? I mean,
Right.
that's something that I think we just have to come to. It's like, do I want to be that? Because I don't think so. That's, and I don't know if that makes sense, but.
It does. It's great. Thank you. So let's talk about how would you describe your career journey, or you should figure that out.
Um, it's like a Skittles explosion
Oh boy.
all
Yeah.
over the place. Oh my goodness. Because I am a musician. I'm a classically trained musician. In my heart, that is who I am. Yet most of the people I work with have no idea. And it's because it did not materialize that I had a career doing that.
Okay.
And in Dallas College, after the conservatory closed, I was prohibited from being able to work in that area, even though I was hired to work in that area.
Why? Why was that?
Racism
Okay. Oh wow.
by the full-time faculty member who was in charge at the time. So that was difficult. So the people with whom I've worked the last probably 15 years or so have no idea. They don't even know I'm a musician because that part of it was closed. By the time Michael became the dean, Michael has never heard me play.
No, I didn't even know you played.
There you go. That's hard when it's the thing that at your core you are. And then you come up against a time where you know that it's not going to happen for you because the window has closed. And it's just not going to happen. It's not ever going to happen. And you have to let go of the feeling that, well, it's not fair and all of these things. It's just, it's not going to be there. So my career journey never included that part of what made me vibrant, that classical musical part. So I parlayed that and transitioned into musical theater, which I fell in love with. And I had like a 37-year career in musical theater. And you do that along with doing another job, because except for the years I lived in New York, because outside of New York City, you can't do that full time, and it's difficult and live. So I've always been fragmented because of that. You finding something that's bringing an income that you can tolerate, and then finding a way to be a musician.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's always, even when I was with City, I was doing shows at Theater 3 and in the area theaters as musical director at the same time. So there are write-ups about me in the newspaper in Dallas in that role. And then in the daytime, I'm in my Christian Dior suit and my, with my attaché, going into an office in the Hartford building downtown Dallas, to work. So as a result of that, straddling two worlds, I have had a lot of different jobs. And it's all been indirect. Because I'm so diverse, I didn't fit a headhunter's model. And I came through at the time that to get a job, you went to the employment agencies and a placement. And they recruited you, or you went there. You didn't just walk to a corporation to apply. There was a middleman there. And I don't know if you knew it was ever like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And so that's how you got jobs. And they placed you, well, there's a template. I don't fit the template.
No.
I don't fit it in any way. And I'm the person that if you talk with me, if you bring me into the space and you have the conversation, I will get the job. But on paper, I look like I need to be in an asylum. It makes no sense, you know, unless it's an arts person that's evaluating it, which it never is. It makes no sense. I look indecisive. I look just scattered. I look. It's hard. So the better job opportunities I've gotten have been through word of mouth and referrals. And I finally stopped going to placement agencies because I knew they would never be able to place me. But the jobs that I got were really good jobs.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good.
They were just all over the place, you know.
But when you say they were all over the place, but were they right for you at that moment that you were in during that time period in your life? Or were they just all over the place still?
That's a good question. They served a purpose. That's not the same as saying they were right for me. They served a purpose. For a time, I was a licensed agent with Metropolitan Insurance, selling a variety of products, excluding the Series 12, which would have brought in the S&E exchange. I didn't go that step. I wasn't excited about that, but I was going through a divorce, and that was a job that I could get quickly, and I had to replace that income. So it was a pragmatic decision. Okay, so that's what I meant when I said might not have been right for me, but it was a means to an end, you know. But then I was with an arts management company. Well, yeah. Yeah, of course, you know, I could bring my business background to that. And then I am an arts person. I've got these music degrees and I've worked in theater all these years. So it was perfect. So there have been those that were right for me at the time. Right. But they've also been mixed in with those that were a means to an end. And it's always better if you have employment in something that really satisfies something important in you. That's just the best feeling in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
And when it satisfies that important, are you, you know, is because sometimes you said that it was a means to an end. At that point, it was served its purpose. That did you ever feel resentful of that position, or you were like, no, this is serving a purpose for me at this point. It's not forever.
You know, I didn't feel resentful because I always knew that it was temporary because I had an education that I firmly believed in. I was raised that way. I am unshakable on that point. If you have your education, there will always be opportunities. That does not mean that sometimes opportunities don't look like opportunities when they're there, you know? Sometimes an opportunity might not be an opportunity for you. It might actually be a perfect fit for someone else. But you're less likely to be a derelict living under a bridge if you have an education. You just have to work. There are no guarantees. But the odds are really, really, really in your favor. So at the worst times when I was just doing jobs that it's like, oh my God, I can't believe, and I went to college, I can't believe I'm just being a cashier. What is this? At the same time, when I would go to bed at night, I would go, yeah, but girl, this is temporary. This is temporary. You're not gonna be doing this long because you have all of these other things. And so I had a lot of jobs, but a lot of them were just for short periods of time because I knew, no, this is temporary. And which is not saying I'm better than this job. No. I didn't feel that way at all. I just knew that that's not where I was going to reside, that I was here for a minute. And then, but where I was supposed to be next was in front of me. I just couldn't see it, but I knew it was there.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I had one semester where I was working 3 jobs and I knew it was temporary, but it was a means to an end to get to this or that. And plus doing an internship. So yeah, totally. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's that reminder that we have to have. It's just temporary. It's not a forever thing.
Yeah. But I wasn't resentful because I had work. And there are people who never seemed to be able to find jobs. They had long periods of unemployment. So no, I didn't feel special. I just knew that I was prepared for something that was bigger. And there's a difference.
Absolutely. It's great. So what would you say you are most proud of in your plethora of career opportunities that you had?
Oh, it really wouldn't be the thing that I'm most proud of is earning my doctorate. And it's because I started it and then I stopped. And then 30 years later, I went back when I was in menopause.
Why not? Why not?
And working full time and all of these things. And it took 6 years, but I am most proud of that and completing that. In terms of jobs, there are two. One was like my non-performance arts job in New York City, working with architects and engineers on projects. And the knowledge for that industry had come from that very first job I had in finance, because my portfolio was in construction.
Oh.
So I learned how to drive all those big things and machines and all of this. So years later, there's just this dotted line connection. I like that because of the things I learned. One of the guys there gave me the MS-DOS book, and I took it home and I taught myself enough computer science to be able to work the computers in the office, because then that became a part of what I was. And I wound up being the person that made decisions about their computers and the technology and how to connect it and all of that. And so I feel pretty good about that.
Yes,
exactly. That was hard. But the next part was the teaching in the community college, which I chose. Because I had opportunities and offers to move to university, but I didn't see that as an upwardly mobile move.
Okay.
Because they're just different. They're different missions.
It is.
I don't think it's better. It's just different. And if what you really want to do is teach and work with students, then the university is not the most fertile ground for you, because you have an obligation contractually to research and write and research and write. And so the higher up the professors go, they're only teaching maybe 2 classes. And so that was not I'm good at research and I'm good at writing, but I didn't want to have to spend all of my time doing that. But I loved working with the babies who have been told their whole lives that they are by vice principals, by teachers, and these are minority males mostly.
Okay.
They've been told that they're not going to amount to anything. The idea that a human being that is in the line of work of advancing or instilling the joy of learning in another person will tell them at 14 years old that they're a failure and they're not going to amount to anything. I think that that's criminal.
It is.
I think it's criminal. Okay. It is intellectual abuse. But that happens over and over. And to get those conversations and then see them develop a trust in me, the veterans, students that are returning, just these adults who are real people and their lives and their struggles, and the international students, they could not possibly have learned more from me than I did from them. I learned so much from them. And so the biggest impact came through those interactions and what those students taught me. Do I have time to tell you a little short story about
Sure,
a
absolutely.
student?
Absolutely.
This is a COVID story. In March, which is when spring break happened in Dallas, everything just turned upside down because we're going on spring break, but then also that's the last time we're on campus, and who knew it was going to happen. So my last date at Mountain View physically was on March the 6th, I think was Friday. And we're thrust into this. Well, I had been teaching online anyway and face-to-face, so I'm comfortable in both. But there are a lot of my peers that had not. Then you have students. Students take face-to-face courses because they're more comfortable being in the room with the professor. And that's a different student than takes online, but now they're all being forced into it. Well, families lost their jobs. I mean, there were a lot of things that happened. Students lost their job, businesses are closing. It was horrible for them. I had one student, female, who did not live in Dallas proper. I think she lived like, it was an hour's drive away. And she explained, and I just wound up asking a question, she didn't come to me with a problem. I just asked a question, and her response to the question was this: that she would have to get up much earlier because there were two little ones that she had to make sure that they got to school. But then she had to drive to her sister's house, who lived in Dallas, because her sister had Wi-Fi.
Oh,
At her house, they did not have Wi-Fi. And she would get there and do her homework. And I said, what time are you leaving? She said, 5:30 in the morning. Those kinds of stories, you know, how can you not be inspired? How can you not admire someone who is that persistent, that intentional, that dedicated? And so if she's a little late with an assignment, because I was one of those on campus, I didn't take late work. This is pre-pandemic. I didn't take late work. I didn't. That was my hard line in the sand. Well, I can't do that during a pandemic. There are too many variables at this point. I've got students with their smartphones who are driving to hotspots to get on for the virtual session that I've called and try to do their homework through their phone.
yes. Oh,
And the learning management system doesn't interface well and smoothly enough for them to do that. So it's like, am I going to be a partner with a student? Which means I have a student that's leaving at 5:30 in the morning to try to get somewhere to an internet to be able to get her assignments to me. And she's not the only person in her sister's house
yeah.
that needs to do schoolwork. So she's in a line, she's like in queue. Am I going to, because it's like 2 hours over the deadline, am I going to not accept that work? Or so it's things like that. It's like that opportunity to see the human being. And then you can either be part of the success or you can be part of the acceleration of the failure.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, yes.
And so the impact of the stories of my students, not their work, but the stories that I knew about, you know, the mother that got diagnosed with cancer and she had 3 little kids and she finished the semester and it was terminal. But
Oh,
she was leaving to go to Argentina because her mother had not seen the grandchildren. And she wanted her babies to see their grandmother before she died. But
oh
she came to
God.
class, she never missed a class at night, never missed a class, never missed an assignment. And so the things that gives you, that's enough for me to want to continue and those are the stories that when something happens with me, if I have to have another surgery or I'm having a pity party, it's the stories from my students, especially the dreamers.
Yes.
Those are the stories that I think about and I pull, and then it pulls me out of my little pity party, you know. And it's okay to have a pity party. I give myself 24 hours. After 24 hours, nope, you got to snap out of it.
You gotta get out.
Yeah,
Gotta get out.
yeah.
Actually, that's a good segue into, so how do you manage your stress, especially when you're being so involved in in the students' lives and those stories, but how do you manage your stress?
I haven't always managed it well because I'm an overachiever, something of a workaholic. And I would say, that I would have said 15 years ago, oh, I manage it very well. No, no, no.
No.
No. Because managing it doesn't mean that you're continuing to function.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And and I used to think that that's what managing stress meant. It's like, I'm on top of everything. I've met all my deadlines and I'm doing this and I'm going to work. I'm managing my stress very well. No, that just means that you're functioning. You're a functional mess. That's what you are. So, so once I realized that, then I started making sure that at some point during every day I carved out a few minutes, and I didn't define what few was. Few could be 15, few could be 5. That I just completely stepped away from every obligation, because I have a lot of things going. I'm a theater critic. I'm going to reviews and writing things at night. I'm a writer. I'm working on my own stuff for publication. I'm doing this. I've always had my several irons in the fire, but step away from all of that. And that made a huge difference. When I tend to, when that stress is fueled by anger, I will get in my car and I will drive through an economically depressed area. I've been doing that since my 30s, when I needed to something to pull me into a calmer place, as a reminder of how wonderful my life is. And why am I damaging my health, my mental and emotional and physical health, with things that are largely beyond my control anyway? And if they're in my control, then just say no. And so when I reached my 50s, I learned how to say no. That I wasn't going to lose my job because I didn't continue to put myself out there for everything. So learning how to say no, learning how to take breaks. And I now have a dog. Again, I mean, I'm a dog person, but it'd been a long time. Man, getting through COVID, Lola was, no, really, she helped, because they're very calming. And I have, what do you call it? The paperwork for her is a service animal, but for emotional. Because of that, because just her presence, first of all, it kept me from being alone. And then they're just such, there's a catharsis that happens, a lot of times through your animals. So it's not just one thing, it's like a succession of things. And Lola became part of that stress management last year. Who knew,
I love seeing stories of Lola when you post. Love it. It's like this chronicle of Lola.
Yeah, Lola Chronicles, yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, so here's a question for you. There are things that someone may say to us that we believe, even though it's not true. It may have a profound impact on us. What is something that you were told, and how did you work through it? Or maybe are you still working on it?
Something, this was when I was in New York.
Okay.
And one of the project managers, because I worked under two, and one of the project managers, he was nice enough, but I knew that there was something kind of in the way, and I don't know what it was, but it was just a sense. But there was one day in the office when there were conversations, the guys were around. I don't remember what the conversation was. I just remember what he said. I had said that my father had died when I was 12. And he said, "Oh, well, that explains everything. You're from a dysfunctional family."
What?
And I said, "My family's not dysfunctional. My father died." And I've never forgotten that, because the very idea that having one parent meant that you were from a dysfunctional family. And I have thought about that so many times over the years, trying to understand why in his brain, was it a binary choice? And so yeah, that was really a moment. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's insane, right?
Yeah.
To
There was a lot to unpack there, which I've done by
Mhm.
now, but yeah. Can you imagine?
No, I mean, can you imagine, although people who have lost their, yes, or to be considered a dysfunctional, wow,
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it would have been like, I would have been like, what? Stressed. I don't know what I would have said at that
Well,
point.
I said to him, because he was not comfortable with the fact that I have a strong voice. And I will say what I think of you. I'm not going to just be silent. I'm not going to do that. And he would have been more comfortable had I been more submissive or traditional. Oh, I'm neither.
No, really, no, I'm not it. Wrong person to bring in.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That's definitely something to think on. That
Yeah.
someone would say that and even think that.
Yeah.
All right, well, how about this? So, what do you deeply yearn for that you're still on a journey to attain?
Mm-hmm. I write, and I have no confidence in my writing, while at the same time I have received really positive feedback from the writers that I know, including my creative writing professors when I was working on my doctorate. So it's like, I know I can write. I'm aware that I can write. I think there's something to develop there, so I keep writing. But I won't send in my stories because I write short stories. I won't send them into public publishing entities. And so I'm looking forward to not having distractions and to be able to just, like, I'm going to take swimming lessons again, and I'm going to get in the pool and put my head underwater, because what's the worst that could happen, And do I really care if I get rejection letters? I have these conversations with myself, because I'm also finally going to get my website up. Victor Soto has been hosting my domain for over 10 years. He keeps asking me, are you ever going to use this? And I go, I am. So I'm looking forward to being able to do that. And
That's
yeah, further the writing.
good, because I every time I get a chance to read some of your posts, I always think that this would be a great short story to publish.
And some things that Facebook has been good for me with that. It's learning, so there are some things that I post, especially if it's about the past and about family and recollections and those things. That Facebook has been a good trial field to sort of see, is there an interest in these types of stories? And so that feedback has always been positive. And when I'm sharing things about, my experience, those are lived experiences, that's not fiction. But then fiction is based on, and a lot of times arises out of. But I actually am wondering if I need to just, maybe the stumbling block or the obstacle that I'm sensing in fiction, I'm about to decide, well, Janice, maybe that's because you're not supposed to be writing fiction. Maybe you're supposed to be telling your stories.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's the problem, that instead of trying to create a story, just tell the stories and that will work. So
Absolutely. Just
yeah.
even grabbing all the ones that you've posted already
Mm-hmm.
that have resonated with people. Because I know I've read several of them, and I'm just like, these are just wonderful, because I think what I love about it is it does have your personality. It's lived experience.
Yeah.
It really, truly is.
Yeah. So that is something. You're the first person I've told you.
Oh, thank you for sharing. It's going to be wonderful.
Yeah.
And we'll be there reading. I'll be purchasing it. All right. So, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling lost in their career, looking to change their career?
I would tell them, to try not to stress because they can always start over. That I don't think you're too old to start over. Like I was 52 when I went back to school. And there was a time in my life where I would have thought, that is too late, that's too old. No, I was 58. And there were people in the program with me. I remember one guy was 65 and just starting. And so that's one thing, is that you can always start over. And number two, you can change your mind.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter whether or not it makes sense to anybody else. And it's possible that it might not make complete sense to you. Sometimes the things that, all of the jobs that I've told you about, I was a musician. I didn't see any of that coming.
No.
And they were all the ones that I've talked about. They were really important. They were important markers. And I enjoyed those jobs. I still do, and I'm glad I had them. And everything I learned from them was useful to me in the classroom. I was hired at Mountain View, and the dean gave me a book. I was hired to do, the music and drama, stuff. And then she said, and you're also going to teach humanities. And I said, what's that? And she said, here's the book. And I was like, okay. And so then the book was all of the arts, and I went, oh, okay, yeah, that's what I do. And she said, no, the only one that you might not be prepared for, and don't worry about it, is architecture. Most people don't know anything about architecture. And I said, well, I just spent 5 years working in architecture and engineering. So all of those jobs, all those things we do, at some point in our lives, when they're needed, when it's right, they're just going to snap into place, and you'll find yourself going, like that moment, going, oh my God. And when I told her that, she said, you're kidding. And I went, who knew?
Who knew? Right, exactly. They just
Who knew? So all of a sudden, I didn't even need to read a book for what I had to do for that particular course. Now, of course, I did deepen my knowledge and do extra stuff, but I was able to walk into the classroom on the first day and talk about and know what I was talking about. And so I would have that conversation with people and let them know, you can always start over. You can change your mind. It's okay. Other people's opinions, don't let that be the driver for your decision making, and trust your gut. Trust your instincts. That's why we have them.
Right. That's wonderful. All right. So one final question. What are you most excited about your future right now?
The discoveries. I know I keep saying that, but I'm very sincere. I wake up each day realizing it's another opportunity to learn something new. And I have no idea what it's going to be, but I know it's going to be something because I woke up.
Exactly. And you're getting ready to embark on a new journey. Now that you've retired from the community college, you're embarking on a new journey.
And I'm still teaching because I'm an adjunct professor for Southern New Hampshire University. So, yeah, teaching interdisciplinary studies. When they hired me, they saw all of this stuff. They went, because I said humanities, and they said, yeah, but with all of this stuff, you need to be teaching interdisciplinary.
Finally, someone who appreciates all of that.
And it's wonderful. And it's just like, I found my gloves.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So it's just that, knowing that I don't know what's coming next. And I'm not afraid, but I'm terribly excited. Yeah.
That is wonderful. Janice, this has been such a pleasure. There's so many beautiful quotable quotes that are out there that I'm just going to grab when I listen to this, because you have said some beautiful and wonderful things and some great advice. And I love to hear the journey that you have gone. I love that you said, what, a Skittles?
Yeah, Skittles explosion.
which is beautiful. I could just see this visual already for you using that.
Yeah.
But it's what I love about it is that it showcases to others who are listening to this is like, look, it doesn't have to be just this path. There's a variety of paths, and it's okay to go on those different paths.
Yeah, and sometimes it's dotted lines that crisscross and wrap back around. It's your journey, though.
It is.
And it doesn't have to look like anybody else's journey. And we don't know that when we're young, because society keeps telling us that we have to conform. You know, they pick a degree plan. You can't take, you've got to take these courses only. You can't do this, you can't do that. You know, when we're married, there's one way to be a wife, you know. I mean, we're just urged to conform so much. And I encourage people to resist that, because you don't have to.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Again, thank you so much. This has been a true pleasure for you to listen to you and hear your journey. So thank you so much.
Thank you for asking me.
My pleasure.